my life was in imminent danger. I needed a kidney transplant.
All of us basically have an extra kidney.
You could just give your kidney to anybody.
Very few people in a life get to save a person's life.
The risk to myself was so small, but what you could do to someone else has totally changed their life.
I received a kidney and pancreas transplant.
Your husband saved not only my wife's life, but our whole family.
Living donation has made me a stronger community member.
It's given me more compassion for others.
I am really grateful for this gift because it's given me the chance to live life to the fullest.
Being a non-directed kidney donor has been one of the best things I have ever done.
It's given me a much larger purpose.
I had no idea removing an organ would bring so much joy to my life.
Welcome to the Volunteer Living Donor Advocacy Conference, a virtual opportunity for us to reach you and to attract a broad audience around the country. I'm Taryn Brill, and I'll serve as the moderator and as your guide to today's exciting program. But let me begin by introducing our host, Ned Brooks, who can explain our goal for today, as well as how Donor to Donor, the leading organization representing living donors for kidney donation, has now become the National Kidney Donation Organization.
Thanks, Taryn. Yes, I am Ned Brooks, and I'm excited to be able to organize as well as participate in today's program. Our goal is simple: to provide volunteer living donor advocates around the country with information from the top experts in their fields so that you'll be better equipped to advocate for living donation. While we regret that we were not able to convene this group in person last April, we're going to be able to take advantage of the educational potential offered by this virtual presentation. And I can assure you that this entire conference, along with additional segments, will be streaming on our YouTube channel beginning on October 21st, so that you and your colleagues will be able to focus on the individual segments or on the entire program. And throughout today's program, Taryn and I will remind you how to post your questions and comments about what you're viewing.
As you might expect, our lineup of speakers today is tremendous. You will hear and see the perspective of people at literally every point in the transplant process, from a nephrologist and a living donor coordinator to a Nobel laureate and the head of the National Kidney Registry. In other words, you'll see and hear from just about everyone who is playing a critical role in educating all of us in our different roles in advocating for kidney transplants. And as an added bonus, each of today's speakers is introduced by one of our team members.
Speaking of our team, I served until recently, as Taryn indicated, as the founder and CEO of Donor to Donor, the leading organization representing living donors for kidney donation. But in order to more accurately reflect the ever-broadening scope of the services that we offer and the transplant practices currently available, our organization is now known as the National Kidney Donation Organization, or NKDO. The NKDO team consists of volunteer advocates across the country, all of whom are either kidney donors or kidney recipients. And I am ably assisted in the management function of NKDO by our executive director, Lisa Emmett. Lisa ran a successful campaign to find a kidney donor for her husband after she was deemed medically ineligible to donate. So before we turn to our impressive roster of guest speakers, I'd like you to see and hear Lisa Emmett.
Thank you, Ned. National Kidney Donation Organization will continue its mission of education and advocacy projects through a variety of distribution mediums, including interactive interviews with transplant industry professionals, so that we maintain and enhance our reputation as the premier kidney advocacy group within the United States. Though COVID-19 has put a halt to many in-person conferences and gatherings, we are grateful for this virtual opportunity to reach broad audiences who may not have had the chance to attend a conference in person. We will continue to support and grow our social media presence, update our YouTube channel with educational videos and other information on donor protections available at transplant centers so that potential donors, as well as recipients, may make an informed decision about their selection of transplant center. Though we never give medical advice, We do advise patients of successful tactics used by some of our team members in the kidney transplant journey, whether you are preparing to be a donor or a recipient. We seek to foster a community of kidney advocates who are dedicated to the education and awareness of the best transplant practices available today.
Yes, and I am certain that you will see a lot more of Ned Brooks and Lisa Emmett as we move through today's agenda. But there are two important announcements we'd like to make before we begin with our roster of speakers. First, because of our virtual format, I want to remind you that we encourage your questions and your comments via YouTube chat, and we are committing to address those issues as well as any concerns at a Zoom session 1 week from now.
And I also want to mention that sponsored organizations are playing a critical role in the success of this Volunteer Living Donor Advocacy Conference. And in that context, I'd like to highlight the valuable guidance and support we have received from CareDx, your partner in transplant care, as well as from Veloxis, Nora, Equinox, Vineyard Vines, VRL Eurofins, Brooks & Filatico, Oomph, Maritime Partners, and Sanofi Genzyme.
As Ned indicated, we've recruited various members of the NKDO team to introduce each of our guest speakers today. So let's begin with Pete and Betsy Snow, who are married and who were both non-directed donors or people who have donated their kidneys altruistically.
Hello, my name is Peter Snow, and I donated a kidney 4 years ago at the age of 63 to a stranger in New York City. Both the recipient, a mother of two, and I are doing very well.
Hello, my name is Betsy Snow, and I donated a kidney 2 years ago at the age of 64. My kidney went to a stranger in the Madison, Wisconsin area, completing a 4-person chain. Unlike my husband, I donated my kidney at a hospital affiliated with the National Kidney Registry and participated in an NKR swap. Because I was involved in an NKR swap, I was given support and protections my husband did not receive. More importantly, I was able to give a voucher to a person needing a kidney transplant through the NKR's voucher program. The person who received the voucher was over 99% sensitized and nearly an impossible to match. So instead of a probable 5 to 10 year wait for a suitable deceased donor transplant, she received one in a few months. This was only possible because of the National Kidney Registry, founded by Garet Hil and his wife Jan in 2007, following their daughter's successful transplant that same year. Having experienced many difficulties finding a compatible kidney donor for their daughter, Garet and Jan started the NKR to solve the problem of incompatible donors. Garet became the second voucher donor in 2015 when he started an 8-person deep chain with his daughter receiving the voucher generated by his donation. Since its early beginnings, the National Kidney Registry has spread to almost 100 hospitals in the U.S., now accounting for over 70% of the paired exchange transplants in the country. The NKR's voucher program is growing more rapidly than the paired exchange and allows a person to donate today and give a voucher to a family member in case they should need a kidney transplant today or years down the road. At last count, the NKR had facilitated over 4,200 transplants. As kidney donors, the two of us are proud to introduce Garet Hil, the founder of the National Kidney Registry. Thank you.
Garet, eliminating disincentives for living donors is a perennial topic that has proponents with strong opinions on a variety of possible solutions. You are the founder and CEO of the National Kidney Registry and a living donor yourself. Rather than considering this problem as a thought experiment or attempt to establish national legislation in a multi-year lobbying effort, the National Kidney Registry has independently created a suite of protections for donors designed to eliminate or mitigate as many of the disincentives to living donation as possible. You call this suite of protections Donor Shield. Please tell us about the specific protections in Donor Shield and how they apply to donors.
You're being talked over by a chirping bird here. So Donor Shield is a suite of protections and support. There are 8 different protections. We'll go through each one of them. And it didn't happen overnight. We started this a long, long time ago. In the very early days, we paid for life insurance and disability insurance for our non-directed donors. And then we expanded that to cover are paired donors. And so it was an evolution over time. And we really started ramping up about 2 years ago, adding more and more protections and support. Today, we have 8 protections and support. The first 2 are probably the ones that are top of mind to donors. The first is reimbursement for lost wages. We'll reimburse up to 4 weeks of lost wages for up to $1,500 a week with no income restrictions. Any donor can apply and be reimbursed. And then the second one is travel and lodging reimbursement. So we reimburse generally hotel, mileage, stuff like that, up to $2,000. We cap it at $2,000. And what we have been doing recently is encouraging people to, instead of fly to a distant city to donate at a center near your home so you don't have to stay in a hotel for a week after you donate your kidney. That's pretty expensive, plus it's hard. You and I both donated, and you know what that recovery process was like. You got to come back to your home here, an hour away from the hospital. Car ride, maybe it's a little bumpy. I felt a couple of those potholes. But it's a lot easier to recover in your home. So what we're doing is we've got a remote donation program where if you have a friend or a loved one that lives in a distant city, you can donate here and we'll ship that kidney to the distant city. Or better yet, you'll donate through the voucher program. We'll find the best match for your kidney and we'll pass the voucher to your friend or loved one who will then redeem the voucher and we'll get a kidney, a well-matched kidney for them. So the travel and lodging, again, capped at $2,000, but there's another component that is remote donation. We're seeing a big pickup in that. So first 2, lost wage reimbursement, travel and lodging reimbursement. The next 2 are the insurance products, life insurance and disability insurance. Now, life insurance, it's a $500,000 principal amount. You get it automatically if you're covered by Donor Shield. And thankfully, we've never had a case, right? We're at 4,000 or 5,000 transplants now, and we hope we never have a life insurance case. The disability, we've had just very few. And the disability policy covers, I think it's up to $1,500 a week for 52 weeks. If you have a complication, you can't go right back to work. Like I said, we've had very few of those. I think maybe only 2. So those are the next 2, the insurance products. Then we have a protection that I think is critically important, and I didn't realize this until about 5 or 7 years into doing the National Kidney Registry swaps that this was even a problem. It's called, we give coverage for uncovered complications. What does that mean? So let's say you donate and your kidney goes to California, and then 6 months later, because you donated, you end up with a hernia. That's one of the complications we see. It's very rare, but it happens. But the patient that received your kidney in California had private insurance, and the private insurance company cut a deal with the hospital to limit coverage for complications after 90 days. Well, now you don't have, you the donor don't have coverage, and so you'll probably go to your own insurance, but we don't think that's right. We think that the donor should be completely taken care of. And this came about because we actually had a case. It was a non-directed donor out of Colorado, donated their kidney. 3 months later, they had a hernia, and the hospital in Colorado wanted to bill the donor $25,000 for a hernia. First of all, that's way too much, right? It should be like $5,000. We stepped in, we said, whatever, we're taking care of this. We're not going to let that donor, get kind of hit with this big medical bill, because the recipient center made a deal with the insurance company that limited the donor complication coverage to only 30 days, right? So that's a pretty tight window. And so we went to work way back then. We took care of the situation. That donor we paid for actually turns out the patient at the recipient center had Medicare as secondary coverage, and that covered it. But we had to dig for a while to even find that, but we would have taken care of the donor. So we put a program in place called Coverage for Uncovered Complications. We charged a small fee. to transplant centers who had patients with private insurance, because that's where the problem. Medicare does a great job. It's the private insurance that have these termination dates for coverage. So we now have, I think the last time I looked, $1.2 million in an account for donor complications. We pay out claims routinely, and it's now a network-wide thing. So no donor is put in a position where they have to, find money to pay for a complication after the fact. I think that's a very important protection, one that doesn't get a lot of attention. So that's number 5. Number 6 is legal support. So we have an attorney on retainer. And we did that originally because we were concerned that donors might lose their health insurance once they donated. Amazingly, after 4,000, 5,000 donations, we haven't seen one case where the donors lost their health insurance. Very rare. In fact, we don't even know if it's ever happened. However, we have seen donors fired from their jobs because they legally took time off to donate, and the employer didn't appreciate that. In our first case, we've had 2 cases now. Again, very rare, because most employers are sympathetic and very supportive to donation. But we brought our lawyer in, and we filed suit, and we won. The lawyer did not want to take on this battle because it's a bad look for the lawyer, and there's no way they're going to win. So we step in when a donor needs some protection from, we'll call it unlawful termination, and it's also there for anything else that may come up. But those are the 2 that we've thought about. Let's see, that's legal support. The next protection is lost wage reimbursement and travel and lodging reimbursement for complications, right?
Right.
Because you get a hernia 6 months later, 3 months later, you're out of work for, let's say you're out for 2 weeks. Well, we don't want you to be hit with that. And so if somebody has a complication, we're protecting them, first of all, for the medical procedure if the insurance company is not doing the right thing. And then second of all, we're covering their lost wage and also their travel and any lodging. We had a case, I remember it was a couple of years ago, it was the first case. This is how we start with these protections. We have a center who calls or a donor who calls and said, look, this is my problem. This donor was, I think, a school teacher, and she had some complications. They went away, but she had to take some time off work, and she actually didn't want to be we found out about this case, and we said, you got to be reimbursed. She wasn't looking to be reimbursed, but it's just wrong. If a donor donates a kidney and then they have complications later, they shouldn't have to, carry the burden of lost wages, or in this case, travel and lodging. So that case started this protection. And then I think that's protection 7. And then the 8th protection is one that hit me personally after I donated. I went out to acquire some more life insurance, and I had bought a term life insurance policy before donation, so I had a pretty recent kind of price comparison. And then when I went out to buy it, to up it later on, the price doubled. It's like, wait a second, you're penalizing me because I'm a living donor, and that's a fact. And the person who I was dealing with, they had shopped the plan to, I don't know, 6 or 7 national insurance companies. And it comes down to where they set the creatinine cutoff, right? So they were setting the creatinine cutoff, I don't know, maybe at 1 or 1.2, something like that. Well, you and I both have creatinines over 1.0. But good news is one of the national insurance companies, a big player, reconnected with us. And this is like a year later, and they have upped their cutoff so that kidney donors can qualify for preferred rates. And so if that works out, we're going to probably connect any donor, from our website into this capability to get this insurance. Now, there's also, I think, a dozen states around the country who have outlawed price discrimination against living donors. And so we're also keeping an eye on that, putting that on the website so that donors are fully informed about life insurance. Life insurance is a problem, and I think we have a solution now.
So, Garet, that is fascinating. How do these protections differ from the reimbursement policies of the National Living Donor Assistance Center, also called NALDAC?
Yes, good question. NALDAC launched their program over a decade ago, and they were the real pioneers in this area. They've kind of plowed new ground in supporting donors, getting rid of disincentives, and their primary program was a travel and lodging reimbursement program. So our program differs in two fundamental ways. One is we have 8 protections, and the NALDAC program has 1. That's travel and lodging reimbursement, and they're piloting lost wage reimbursement at a handful of centers. So our breadth of coverage is much more substantial. And I believe that one of the ones that's critical is this coverage for uncovered complications, right? That needs to be part of the package, but the other ones are important too. So the breadth of coverage on the protection is one differential. The second differential is an area that is baffling to me why they're doing it this way, but they are means testing not just the donor but also the recipient. So in order to qualify, I think they bumped the cutoffs up to, I don't know, it was $30,000 or $40,000, whatever that is. And if you make more than that, you can't be reimbursed. We don't have any income cutoffs. Any donor can be reimbursed, and we certainly don't check to see if the recipient has income, because think about that. If, let's say I'm the donor and you're the recipient, and I apply to NALDAC and I'm declined, right, and I don't have the money to do this, I was declined because you have a decent income. Now, what's the next step? I have to then go to you and ask for money. And I don't want anybody in that position where they're going to the recipient and asking for money, because most recipients, you know, they're unemployed, they don't have an income, but it's just an awkward situation. So we don't require, first of all, we don't means test the recipient. Second of all, we have no income limits. It's, you know, we cap the amount that can be reimbursed, but if you make $1 million a year, we're still going to reimburse you lost wages up to $1,500 a week. Now, the reality is we don't get a lot of people over $100,000 a year even asking for reimbursement. So it's kind of a moot point, but I don't think there should be an income cap, because a donor is, you know, if you want to eliminate disincentives, you know, donors donated altruistically, then you shouldn't make it conditional on their income.
Garet, as long as I've been doing this, I've not heard of a case where a living donor has suffered renal failure on his remaining kidney or her remaining kidney. But if that happens, is there any provision for protections for that donor?
There is. When we started the National Kidney Registry back in 2007, one thing that we put in very early on is if a non-directed donor donates a kidney and then they later have renal failure, they will be prioritized for a living donor kidney in the National Kidney Registry. We expanded that a while back to include any donor who donates through the National Kidney Registry. So if you donated in 2015, if you have kidney failure in 3 years, you go back to your hospital and say, hey, I'm an NKR donor, activate me to receive a living donor transplant. Now, after almost 4,000 to 5,000 transplants, we have never had a donor who's come back and said, I have now renal failure and I need to be prioritized for a kidney. Having said that, we did hear from one of our member centers about a year ago. They had a case where they had a directed donor, didn't go through the NKR, and that directed donor did have subsequent renal failure, and they came back, and we couldn't help them because we can only do that for NKR donors. The center wanted to see if there was a way to get that person a living donor kidney. We couldn't help them. So we have heard of one case of that happening, but it wasn't an NKR donor.
So to be clear, all these protections are available to living donors at National Kidney Registry affiliated centers, and that number's roughly how many?
It's about 100.
About 100, okay. So you're geographically well spread out across the country?
We have coverage in every major metropolitan area. So anybody who wants to, who needs a transplant or who wants to donate a kidney can access an NKR center within a short drive from their home.
Well, we here at the National Kidney Donation Organization, or NKDO, formerly Donor to Donor, have been helping potential donors for almost 5 years to donate efficiently and with the most protections available. We've talked about the protections. Let's discuss efficiency and efficacy. In the past couple of years, the NKR introduced 2 different types of voucher programs designed for 2 very different purposes. It can be a little confusing at first to understand how the 2 programs work and how they differ. Please describe these programs.
So the programs you're talking about are the voucher programs. We have the standard voucher and the family voucher, and these have also evolved over time. I donated through the voucher program before there was a split, standard voucher and family voucher. And the family voucher came along about a year or so ago, maybe more than a year, and it was a challenge. There was a lot of debate at the medical board of doing this, but essentially the family voucher allows a Good Samaritan donor like you to donate and get vouchers for their family members. So we say up to 5 vouchers for family members, just in case any of those family members ever need a kidney in the future. Now, again, the probability that those family members who are healthy are ever going to redeem the voucher is pretty small. But again, we want to reduce or remove that disincentive. And I've heard from many non-directed donors that one of their concerns is that somebody in my family may have renal failure and I am down to 1 kidney. I can't bring to the table another kidney.
Well,
right?
there's another application to that works extremely well, and I wish this had been in effect when I donated, and that is the family member who says, well, what if I need a kidney? They're perfectly healthy, but what happens if I need a kidney?
Ned, it happens all the time. I mean, this is a very common conversation with the family members of non-directed donors. Yeah. I've had many conversations about this, but now since the launch of the family voucher program, that issue goes away, because when you donate, you're going to be able to provide vouchers to your family members. And look, we say it's capped at 5, but if you had 7 children and a spouse, we're not going to make you choose, right? You're going to get 8 vouchers. So the family voucher program eliminates that disincentive where you as a Good Samaritan donor have given up a kidney and now you can't help your family members 5 years from now. So that's the one program. The other program is the standard voucher program. So the standard voucher program is fundamentally different. In the standard voucher program, you're donating on behalf of somebody who is in imminent need of a transplant, somebody who's either on dialysis or, getting close to dialysis. And what that is it's an alternative to essentially paired exchange. It's an alternative to direct donation. I remember one case, great example. This is in the early days when we were launching the voucher program. A young man who was in the Navy, he was out on an aircraft carrier. He had leave in December. That's when he could donate his kidney. He came back in December. His mom needed a kidney. She wasn't ready yet to receive the kidney. She had some medical issues to get through, testing, whatnot. So he donated under this, now we call it the standard voucher program, created a voucher for his mom. She redeemed the voucher 3 months later and got a kidney while he was back on the aircraft carrier. So there's a lot of reasons that the voucher program came into existence. Another common one was your spouse needs a kidney and your spouse caretaker, and you're going to donate at the same time your spouse is getting a kidney. And so the voucher program allows the donor to donate a month before, 2 months before, recover, and then the donor spouse now can be a better caretaker for the person getting a kidney. So that's the standard voucher program.
We have a situation somewhat like that right now that we're working with both the donor and the recipient on. So we facilitated a number of advanced donations with the voucher program, and the experience of both the donors and the recipients has been superb. Convenience for the donor in choosing a time and place to donate is huge. And in each case, the recipient has received a transplant within 12 weeks of the donor's operation. But there's another reason why voucher donation may be preferable to direct donation, and that's the quality of the match. Please talk about how and why the recipient may benefit in terms of getting a better match and what that means to the recipient.
So people match biologically, and they match on what we're learning. The new science is showing that you need to look at their eplets, how they match on eplets. These are building blocks for antigens. It used to be that antigen matching was the way the transplant community kind of organized the matching or quantified the matching. But the science has advanced, and there's a more granular level now that we're looking at. And in general, and there's a couple papers out on this, but in general, the typical direct donation transplant, where again you're donating to a spouse or a friend or whatever, is generally not the best match. In fact, most of those matches are either intermediate and high eplet mismatch. And a low eplet mismatch confers a lot of benefits. One is generally lower de novo DSE. These are antibodies that are created for the mismatched antigens that lead to rejection, that lead to kidney failure. Okay, so essentially if you get a good match at the eplet level, your chances of losing that kidney go down and the kidney life years extends. That's very important, right? And then the other thing that the researchers are delving into is they're recognizing that if you get a low eplet mismatch, that you can lower your immunosuppression medications. There's a lot of side effects to those immunosuppression medications. There's a lot of benefit to lowering those. So some studies are out that show that you can safely lower the immunosuppression dosage if you have a low eplet mismatch. So going back to the issue of getting a better match, typically a direct donation is not the best match. You can get the better match in paired exchange, but you can also get it going through the voucher program, because the voucher program is essentially rolling up under the paired exchange program. And what you want to do is assess your current donor. What kind of match is my current donor? We had a situation recently where an unrelated donor was looking to donate to a child, and guess what? They were a low eplet mismatch. They were a great match, right? So we can assess that right on the outset. But in most cases, they aren't a great match, and it's really important for kids to get a great match because they want that kidney to go 60, 70, 80 years, right? So you assess the match, and then once the patient is activated in paired exchange, they can see all the donors in the NKR and accept those donors that are low eplet mismatch, and then if we can facilitate a transplant there. So we'll bring this full circle to why is this important to donors? You're a donor advocacy organization, and you do great work working closely with the donors, and I think a lot of cases the donors never got this information. And when your organization works with donors, they're hearing it for the first time. And once you start working with the donors, then the hospital learns, and we've had a lot of hospitals sign up for these new programs because your organization's working with a donor at that hospital. I can think of one right now, right? So why is this important to the donors? You and I both donated a kidney, and we want that kidney to last as long as possible, and whoever gets it. We may not even know the person who gets our kidney, but we gave up an organ. We want it to work for a long time. And by doing this more sophisticated, more advanced matching, we increase the odds that that kidney transplant, that your kidney will last a lifetime in the recipient. And that's the home run. If you're a donor and you can donate a kidney that's a great match, and that kidney lasts a lifetime for that recipient, that's important. And that's what we're working on. That's one of the kind of the newer things that we're focusing in on.
Well, Garet, you've done an exceptionally good job of talking about how we can eliminate disincentives for living donors. And I just want to thank you for your time and wish you and the NKR all the best going forward.
All right, and thanks for setting up this interview.
You bet.
This is a great conference.
Okay.